the invisible energy you exchange. Every time you argue, Cayce's hidden law, your heart is still racing. Your jaw aches from clenching. There's a metallic taste in your mouth, adrenaline, sharp and bitter. The argument ended minutes ago, maybe hours, but your body hasn't realized it yet. You won, didn't you? You made your point. You stood your ground. You were right. So why do you feel gutted? Why does the silence after feel heavier than the shouting did? Why does your chest feel hollow, like something was scooped out of you and carried away? Here's what they don't tell you about arguments. You're not just exchanging words. You're exchanging something far more precious, something invisible, something you can't get back unless you understand the rules of the transaction. Edgar Cayce, the sleeping prophet, the man who gave over 14,000 trance readings while unconscious, called it the hidden tax of conflict. He said that every time two people argue, they're not just disagreeing about dishes or money or who said what. They're engaged in an energetic exchange that most people can't see. But the body knows. The soul knows. You feel it in the exhaustion that won't lift, in the way certain arguments haunt you for days while others fade in minutes, in the strange, unsettling sense that the person you fought with is still in you somehow, even when they're gone. Cayce taught that conflict is a choice, not about whether to engage, but about what you're willing to trade. And most people are trading something they don't even know they possess. This video is about that transaction. It's about the mechanics of what happens when voices rise, about what travels between two people when anger takes hold, about why some arguments leave you depleted for weeks, while others barely register. And it's about what Cayce saw that kept him awake at night, a vision so disturbing he hesitated to share it publicly. When two people argue, they're not just exchanging words, they're exchanging pieces of their life force. And the one who takes more doesn't win the argument. They inherit a debt. Edgar Cayce was a medical clairvoyant, a man who could enter a trance state, diagnose illnesses he'd never studied, and prescribe treatments he couldn't remember giving. 14,000 readings, thousands of lives touched. A spiritual cartographer who mapped territories most people don't believe exist. But there was one series of readings he rarely spoke about publicly. Between 1933 and 1934, Cayce was asked about something specific, psychic depletion between married couples. Why did some partnerships drain both people until there was nothing left? Why did love turn into a slow, invisible consumption? What emerged from those readings shocked even him. He described in meticulous detail a phenomenon he called energetic vampirism in intimate conflict. Not metaphorical, not symbolic, actual transference of life force, vitality, and soul coherence during arguments. In his trance state, Cayce could see things the waking world couldn't. He saw luminous threads connecting people who were fighting. He saw energy, visible, measurable energy, flowing from one person to the other. Sometimes the flow was one-directional, the aggressor feeding, the defender collapsing. Sometimes it moved both ways, chaotic and tangled. And sometimes, most disturbingly, the energy flowed toward neither person. It drained into what he called the void of discord, a place, a frequency, a kind of energetic landfill where human conflict goes to rot. Cayce used terms most people had never heard: etheric cording, vitality theft, karmic entanglement through anger. He described the mechanism the way a surgeon describes an operation: precise, unsentimental, matter of fact. This is what happens when you raise your voice. This is what punctures when you lash out. This is what you take from them, and this is what they take from you. He was reluctant to share this knowledge widely, because he knew people might use it manipulatively. They might weaponize it. They might start entering conflicts not to resolve them, but to feed. But he also believed the conscious needed to understand what the unconscious was already doing. You can't change a pattern you don't see. And if you can't see the energetic architecture of conflict, you'll keep entering it blind, trading pieces of your soul for the illusion of being right. So what exactly is being exchanged? Cayce's answer rewrites everything you think you know about conflict. You are not just flesh. You know this already, even if no one ever taught you the words for it. You've felt it. The weight of someone's presence before they speak. The way certain rooms feel thick with tension. The exhaustion that has no medical explanation. Cayce taught that every human being has a layered energy system, 5 bodies, interpenetrating, inseparable. The physical body, skin, bone, blood, the one you see in the mirror. The etheric body, vital force, chi, the electricity that animates the flesh. The emotional body, feeling frequency, the weather system of your inner life. The mental body, thought forms, the architecture of your beliefs. And the spiritual body, soul signature, the part of you that existed before birth and will exist after death. These layers don't just sit inside your skin, they extend beyond it. Your emotional field radiates 3 to 8 feet in all directions. Your mental field goes even further. This is why you can sense someone's mood before they say a word. Why certain people exhaust you without ever touching you. Why spaces hold emotional residue long after the people have left. In normal interaction, these fields coexist peacefully, like overlapping circles, like colors blending at the edges. Your energy touches theirs, and theirs touches yours, but the boundaries remain intact. But in conflict, something changes. The fields don't just touch, they pierce. Cayce called this auric puncture. It's what happens when anger flares, when voices rise, when one person's field surges toward another with force. The protective membrane that surrounds you, the one that filters what comes in and what goes out, develops openings. And through those openings, energy flows. Involuntarily, you've felt this. That argument that leaves you shaking hours later, even though it only lasted 5 minutes. The partner whose anger doesn't just upset you, it makes you physically ill. The colleague whose criticism feels like it's inside your chest, not just in your ears. This isn't sensitivity. This isn't weakness. This is accurate perception of an actual energy event. Your nervous system is registering what your mind hasn't been taught to see. The puncture, the flow, the theft. And here's what Cayce saw that changes everything. The energy doesn't flow toward truth. It doesn't flow toward whoever's right. It flows toward need. Arguments are never about what they're about. Not really. It's not about the dishes. It's not about the money. It's not about tone or timing or who said what at dinner last Thursday. Those are just the sparks. The fuel underneath is something else entirely. Cayce taught that conflict begins with an energy state, not an issue. When your life force is depleted, from stress, disconnection, purposelessness, soul starvation, your system starts seeking equilibrium. It's not conscious, it's not intentional, it's survival. And the fastest way to replenish depleted energy is through conflict. Anger is a stimulant. It floods your system with adrenaline. It makes you feel alive, powerful, certain. It's the emotional equivalent of espresso, a jolt that temporarily masks the exhaustion underneath. But it requires fuel, and that fuel comes from the other person. Here's the mechanism Cayce described. When you raise your voice, your emotional body expands. It reaches, it surges outward, looking for something to push against, something to feed from. When the other person defends themselves, their field contracts, or it lashes back. And in that exchange, energy begins moving, not based on who's right, not based on logic or fairness or truth, based on who's emptier. The depleted person pulls, the fuller person leaks. Neither is conscious of this. Both think they're arguing about the topic at hand. Both believe they're fighting for principles, for respect, for justice. But underneath, something older is happening. Your nervous system is doing what it evolved to do. survive. You're not manipulative. You're not cruel. You're starving. And your body, in its ancient wisdom, knows that conflict generates energy. It creates aliveness. It fills the void, even if only temporarily. The tragedy is this: stolen energy never integrates. It sits in your field like food you can't digest. It gives you a temporary high, righteousness, vindication, the buzz of winning, but it doesn't nourish you. It can't, because it was never meant for you. So you have to keep taking it, again and again, which is why some people seem to seek arguments, why they can't let things go, why peace feels boring to them, unstimulating. They're not addicted to drama, they're addicted to the energy drama generates. And this is where Cayce's vision becomes terrifying, because there are 3 types of energy exchange in conflict, and only one of them is visible. Cayce identified 3 simultaneous transactions that occur during heated conflict. 3 levels of theft. 3 ways you lose pieces of yourself, or take pieces you were never meant to carry. The first theft, vitality. This is the most obvious. Physical life force, the energy that keeps you upright, alert, animated. Watch what happens in an argument. One person gets louder, more energized, more alive. The other gets quieter, more shut down, more collapsed. That's not a personality difference, that's a transfer. The person who emerges from the argument, feeling energized, self-righteous, vindicated, buzzing with adrenaline, has taken vitality from the person who emerges depleted, foggy, numb, like something was vacuumed out of them. The energy flows toward the aggressor, but they don't realize they're taking it. To them, it feels like passion, conviction, strength. It feels like they're right, and their aliveness is proof of it. But Cayce called it what it is: vampirism, unconscious, unintentional, but real. The second theft, emotional signature. This one is subtler. You don't just take their energy, you take their emotional pattern. Cayce described this as borrowing another's frequency. When your aura is punctured, emotional content transfers bidirectionally. You leave the argument carrying feelings that aren't yours, and they carry yours. This is why, after a fight with an anxious person, you feel anxious. After a fight with someone who's depressed, you feel heavy. After a fight with someone who's enraged, you feel that rage sitting in your chest, even though you weren't the one who was angry. This isn't empathy, this is contamination. Your field has absorbed their unprocessed emotional debris, and now you're wearing it, trying to process feelings that didn't originate in you, that don't belong to your story, that you can't make sense of because they're not yours. This is why certain arguments haunt you differently, why you can't shake them, why you keep replaying the interaction, trying to understand why you feel so wrong, so off, so unlike yourself. It's because part of what you're feeling isn't yourself. It's them. The third theft, soul fragments. And then there's the most dangerous level. Cayce taught that intense conflict, especially repeated conflict with the same person, can cause what he called partial soul separation. Under extreme stress, fragments of consciousness detach, and they attach to the other person. This creates energetic cording, invisible tethers that link you to them, even across distance, even across time. You literally leave a piece of yourself with them, and you take a piece of them. This is why you can't stop thinking about them, why you feel them even when they're gone, why certain conflicts feel like possession, like you've been invaded by something foreign and you can't get it out. The soul fragment is trying to return home. It creates obsessive thought loops, emotional undertow, the sense that you're not fully in your own body because part of you is still tangled with theirs. Cayce was clear. Neither person is evil in this exchange. Both are unconscious. The mechanism is ancient, survival-based, encoded into the nervous system long before language existed. It operates below the level of choice, until you bring awareness. But here's what kept Cayce awake, what made him hesitate before sharing this knowledge. The person who takes more energy doesn't win the argument. They inherit something far worse. There is a law Cayce insisted on, a law of energetic reciprocity that operates whether you believe in it or not. Stolen energy carries the frequency of its origin. If you take vitality from someone who's depressed, you inherit their depression. If you take power from someone in pain, you inherit their pain. Not immediately, but inevitably. Cayce called this the boomerang of psychic theft. The energy you take doesn't integrate cleanly because it was never meant for you. It sits in your field like a foreign object, like a splinter your body tries to expel but can't. And it creates inflammation, unexplained anxiety, intrusive thoughts you can't trace to any event in your life, physical symptoms with no medical cause, self-sabotage in areas completely unrelated to the original conflict. Think about it. The boss who berates employees, who feeds on their fear and submission, who feels powerful in those moments, and then develops insomnia, wakes at 3 a.m. with a nameless dread he can't explain. The partner who wins every fight, who always has the last word, who dominates every disagreement and becomes inexplicably depressed, numb, disconnected from joy, the parent who controls through anger, who uses rage to enforce compliance and watches their vitality drain over the years, aging faster than their body should. Cayce's teaching, you cannot nourish yourself on another's essence without becoming sick with their unhealed material. The universe doesn't punish this. It simply enforces coherence. What you take, you must process. And if you can't process it, if you don't have the capacity to metabolize someone else's pain, their depression, their rage, it processes you. It becomes the lens through which you see the world. It shapes your thoughts, your moods, your choices. You don't just carry their energy, you become it. And there's a second cost, one that operates across lifetimes. Cayce taught that the soul is eternal, that you've lived before and you'll live again, that death is not an ending but a transition, a shedding of one body, a rest, and then a return. And when you return, you come back to finish what you started. This includes energetic debts. When you exchange energy through conflict repeatedly with the same person, taking from them, giving to them, entangling with them, you create what Cayce called karmic cording. Semi-permanent connections that transcend this lifetime. These cords aren't punishment, they're not divine retribution, they're unfinished business. The soul recognizes, I took from them, I gave to them, we're out of balance, this must be resolved. And so you meet again. Next relationship, next family, next life. That person you can't stop fighting with, the one you can't leave, can't forgive, can't stop engaging with no matter how hard you try. You're not weak, you're entangled. Cayce described seeing these cords in his readings, thick, dark lines between souls who'd been locked in power struggles across centuries. Some cords were so old, so calcified, they'd become what he called soul contracts of opposition. Two beings who incarnate repeatedly to battle the same lesson from different angles. Husband and wife in one life, parent and child in another, business rivals, siblings, enemies. The faces change, the dynamics shift, but the lesson remains the same. Learn how to have conflict without theft. Learn how to disagree without violation. Learn how to stand in your truth without puncturing theirs. Until you do, the cord pulls you back, again and again. Cayce saw people who'd been fighting the same fight for 5 lifetimes, 10 lifetimes, longer, not because they were cursed, because they hadn't learned yet. And the universe is patient. It will give you as many chances as you need. But the cords don't dissolve through avoidance. They don't dissolve through cutting rituals or energetic surgery. They dissolve through resolution, through learning what the conflict was trying to teach you, and then choosing differently. But here's what even the chords don't reveal. What happens to the energy that neither person takes? Sometimes both people leave an argument depleted. No one wins. No one feels energized. Both are gutted, hollowed out, emptied. Where did the energy go? Cayce's answer is the most unsettling layer of all. It went to the void. When two fields clash with equal force, when both people are attacking, both defending, both puncturing, the energy doesn't transfer between them. It dissipates. It drops into lower frequencies, becoming what Cayce called free-floating discord or astral debris. This energy doesn't disappear. It collects in what occult traditions call the lower astral plane, a kind of energetic landfill where human conflict residue accumulates, rage that was never resolved, grief that was never processed, fear that was never faced. It sits there, swirling, feeding on itself. And here's the disturbing part. This debris attracts consciousness, not human consciousness, non-human consciousness, thought forms, egregores, parasitic frequencies that thrive on disharmony. Cayce was careful with his language. He didn't use the word demons that carried too much religious baggage, too much fear, but he described entities that latch onto recurring conflict and amplify it to generate more food. They don't create the conflict, they intensify it. You've felt this. Arguments that escalate beyond logic, fights where you hear yourself saying things you don't mean, things that feel like they're coming from somewhere else, conflicts that feel possessed, like something wants you to keep going, wants you to destroy each other. Cayce said, when you argue in rage, you are not alone. You feed what feeds on you. This isn't meant to terrify you, it's meant to awaken you. Unconscious conflict doesn't just harm you and the other person. It feeds a system that perpetuates unconsciousness itself. Every time you engage in rage without awareness, you're not just draining yourself, you're contributing to the collective debris, the shadow that humanity has been generating for millennia. And it grows. Which brings us to the question Cayce was asked most. How do you stop this? How do you argue without theft? You don't have to avoid conflict. You have to change its structure. Cayce taught that conscious disagreement is possible, that you can stand in your truth, express your needs, set your boundaries, without violating another person's field. But it requires 3 conditions. Condition 1, energetic sovereignty. Before you engage in any difficult conversation, you must consciously close the unconscious feeding channels. This isn't about building walls. Walls invite battering. Walls create rigidity. This is about creating a membrane, permeable to truth, impermeable to theft. Cayce's practice. Visualize your aura as a sphere of light with clear boundaries. See it extending around you, 3 feet, 6 feet, as far as feels right. And then make an internal declaration. I do not take what isn't freely offered. I do not give what isn't consciously chosen. This isn't cold. This is clean. It means you're entering the conversation as a sovereign being, not a hungry one. Condition 2. Conflict as inquiry, not combat shift. The goal. From winning to understanding. Cayce said, the moment you seek to dominate, you invite violation. Instead, try this. I need to understand why this matters to you. Help me see what I'm missing. We're both protecting something. What is it? This doesn't mean capitulation. It doesn't mean abandoning your truth. It means refusing to puncture. You can hold your boundary without weaponizing your field. You can be firm without being violent. Condition 3, conscious energy management. Notice when you're depleted before you engage. This is critical. Cayce taught that 80% of energetic theft happens when one or both people enter conflict already empty. If you're starving, you will feed. Unconsciously, the practice. I'm too depleted to have this conversation with integrity. I need to resource myself first, then return. This isn't avoidance. This is responsibility. It's saying, I care enough about this relationship and about my own integrity to not turn this into a feeding frenzy. Conflict is not the enemy. Unconscious conflict is. Conscious disagreement, where both parties remain sovereign, curious, boundaried, doesn't drain. It clarifies. Cayce called this the alchemy of sacred friction. Two truths rubbing against each other, generating heat, but not burning the house down. But there's one relationship where this is nearly impossible to practice, and Cayce had specific guidance for it. Family members, the people you live with, sleep beside, share space with. These relationships are different. Cayce taught that intimacy involves voluntary auric merging. When you fall in love, when you commit to someone, when you share your life with them, you're not just emotionally close, you're energetically fused. You literally share energy fields during sex, during deep conversation, during cohabitation, and especially during sleep. This is beautiful when both people are resourced. It's devastating when one or both is depleted, because intimate partners become each other's primary energy source. And when love falters, when connection breaks down, they become each other's primary energy drain. The arguments are more vicious, more irrational, more depleting, not because the love was fake, but because the access is already established. You're not puncturing a boundary. You're exploiting an opening that was created in love, in trust, in vulnerability. You gave them the keys, and now those keys are being used to unlock places that shouldn't be touched in conflict. Cayce's guidance for long-term intimacy: you must periodically close and re-choose the opening. Practices: separate sleeping spaces during intense conflict, not as punishment, as protection. Your fields need to stop bleeding into each other so both can stabilize. 24-hour moratoriums on loaded topics. If you can't discuss it without draining each other, agree to pause. Come back when you're both resourced. Explicit energy check-ins. I'm at 30% capacity. I can't do this conversation with integrity right now. This isn't distance, this is maintenance. The most loving thing you can do is refuse to feed on each other when you're empty, because the alternative is slow, mutual destruction. Two people who love each other, consuming each other until there's nothing left. And if you're already entangled, if the cords are already formed, Cayce offered one practice for dissolution. Maybe you're reading this and recognizing yourself. You've taken energy, or you've had it taken from you, or both. You see the pattern now, the feeding, the depletion, the cords, and you want to make it right. Cayce offered a ritual, not religious, not complicated, for energetic disentanglement. He warned against cutting cords violently. That creates energetic shrapnel, he said, wounds that don't heal cleanly. Instead, do this. Step 1, acknowledgement. Name what happened, out loud or in writing. I took your energy when I criticized you in front of others. You took mine when you used my vulnerability against me. Don't send this to them. This is internal accountability. This is you seeing clearly. Step 2, visualization. See the energy that isn't yours as a luminous substance you're holding. It might look like fog, weight, color, texture. Thank it for showing you what you needed to learn, and then consciously hand it back. Not to their wounded self, not to their ego, to their soul, their higher self, the part of them that's eternal, whole, loving. Return it with reverence. Step 3, retrieval. Now call back the fragments you left with them. I call back all parts of my energy that I left in conflict, in debt, in entanglement. Visualize golden light streaming back into your body, filling the places that felt empty, reintegrating. Step 4, sealing, close the feeding channel. I release the pattern of unconscious exchange between us. I choose sovereign relating or none at all. Cayce said, this must be done with love, not righteousness. If you're still angry, you're still feeding. The goal isn't to win the energetic exchange retroactively, it's to complete it so both souls are free. And there's one person you haven't returned energy to yet. The most devastating energy theft Cayce ever witnessed wasn't between people. It was self-inflicted. Internal conflict creates the same auric puncture, the same energy drain as external arguments. The inner critic arguing with the inner child. The achiever battling the rest seeker. The spiritual self shaming the human self. These aren't metaphors. They're distinct energies within you, and when they fight, when one part of you attacks another, you puncture your own field. You become both vampire and victim, and the theft is constant. Think about it. How much of your exhaustion comes not from people, but from the war inside you? The argument between who you are and who you think you should be. The judgment that loops endlessly. You're too much. You're not enough. You're failing. You're broken. That's not wisdom. That's self-consumption. Cayce said, "The cruelest theft is the one you commit against your own essence." And here's the pivot. What if you applied the same energetic sovereignty internally? What if you stopped letting your wounded parts attack your tender parts? Visualization. See all your inner voices as distinct energies, the critic, the child, the protector, the dreamer. Acknowledge each one. Thank each one. But stop letting them puncture each other. Internal conflict doesn't have to be violent. It can be dialogue, negotiation, coexistence. The future version of you, the one who's healed this pattern, whispers, "I'm not at war with myself anymore. And the peace isn't because I fixed everything. It's because I stopped feeding on my own life force to fuel the fight." And this brings us to Cayce's final teaching, the one he said most people would misunderstand. Strip away the mechanics, the theft, the chords, the practices. Underneath all of it, Cayce taught one truth. There is an energy that cannot be stolen. It can only be given. He called it Christed frequency, divine flow, the infinite well. This isn't religious jargon, it's energetic fact. When you operate from personal reserves, ego, will, emotion, physical vitality, you are depletable, stealable, vulnerable to drain. But when you access the deeper source, the soul's connection to universal love, that energy is self-replenishing. It flows through you, not from you. You're not the source, you're the vessel. And conflict sourced from this place doesn't drain because you're not giving your own energy. You're allowing energy to move through you. Cayce said, "When you argue to defend love, you cannot be emptied. When you argue to defend ego, you've already lost everything." The reframe. The problem was never conflict itself. It was who you thought you were when you entered it. If you believe you're a separate, limited self, finite resources, fragile boundaries, you will fight to protect those small reserves, and you will steal to survive. But if you remember you're an aperture for something infinite, you can engage any conflict without fear of depletion, because you're not giving your own energy. You're allowing energy to move through you. This is why saints can love enemies, not because they're superhuman, but because they're not depleting themselves to do it. They're pulling from a source that never empties, which means the real question isn't, how do I stop losing energy in conflict? The real question is, who am I when I enter this conversation? Every argument is now a threshold. Unconscious theft or conscious sovereignty. You will still have conflict. You're human. You're in relationship. You care about things. But you get to choose the quality of the exchange. Will you puncture or remain whole? Will you feed or resource yourself first? Will you take or give freely? Cayce's promise. The soul that learns to engage conflict without violation becomes unstoppable, because nothing can drain what's infinitely sourced. You don't have to be perfect at this. You will forget. You will steal. You will collapse into old patterns. The practice is noticing sooner and choosing again. One conscious argument is worth 1,000 unconscious fights. What if your next conflict, the one brewing, the one you're dreading, became the place where you first practiced energetic sovereignty? Not to win, not to lose, but to remain whole while two truths try to coexist. That's mastery. That's love. The argument isn't the problem. The unconsciousness is, and you just became conscious. If this changed how you see conflict, share it. Send it to someone still fighting unconsciously. They need this map, like this video. Subscribe if you're committed to waking up, not just in meditation, but in the messy, difficult, beautiful practice of being human with other humans. And in the comments, tell me, which relationship taught you about energy theft? Where did you first notice the drain? Let's build awareness together. Next video, Cayce's map of psychic protection, or how to recognize soul contracts before they trap you. Until then, may your conflicts reveal truth, not create debt. May your boundaries be clear, not cruel. May you remember, you are not your depletion. You are the infinite well that forgot it was full. Argue if you must, but never again at the cost of your soul.